Welcome back to All for United. We are live across YouTube, Twitter and Facebook with Last Word. We're not doing reaction shows anymore, which means we can be a little bit more calculated when we do these shows later on in the weekend. And it also means we can bring you hopefully more quality content instead of just shouting at a camera, because that's what would have happened today. I mean, I don't speak on behalf of the lads, of course, but I don't think there's one person on this panel who wouldn't say they weren't disappointed today. Massively disappointed, bitterly let down, and maybe even a little bit disgusted. I mean, it's not just about what happened on the pitch today. Protests happened, yet we were sat there watching, a lot of us who are watching at home, one of the Glazers just sat there with Arnold and Murto in front of him, like they didn't really have grasp what was going on that pitch, which is even more frustrating. Then we get linked with Arnautovic, even more frustrating. Then we're all bickering with each other on Twitter. Brings more animosity. And then on top of that, we have to be subjected to watching Erling Haaland score 2 great goals for City today and see them push on like United don't even matter. Plus, fights in the stand. I mean, it couldn't get any worse today when it comes to an opening game, and we're going to try and dissect it all a little bit. And obviously, All for United is all about you guys. Like, we want to see you in the live chat as well. So if you're watching anywhere but YouTube, come over to YouTube, search All for United, and get in the live chat. I've seen some of your comments already, and we will get onto them. Jacob and Santa Notch is in there, and John Maguire's in there as well, and John Gray and Andrew and Karthik, who's just popped up with. Don't know what it is that's making me think this, but I don't think we're going to win the league. I mean, Liverpool drew against Fulham. Just saying. Anyway, Stu, let me come over to you. And I want to start with the main culprits, because that's on the title of the show. Look, I'm just going to pinpoint. I'm going to name 5 players here, and I don't want to play the individual blame card, but it's getting to that point now, isn't it? 5 culprits. DeGea, Fred, McTominay. Some would even say Rashford, although he's getting himself into the positions. He's missed a couple of really good opportunities there today. So he's maybe here or there. But then you've got a couple of others in Shaw and Dalot, who I'd say would make up that 5. I wouldn't say Rashford does yet. There's 5 culprits there who literally today played like they were playing last season. Didn't look any different. How can you surmise today? And would you talk about any of them? Would you play the blame game with any of them yet? Or is it just too early to go in on individuals?
Well, first of all, there's always 11 culprits when you concede a goal, because you concede a goal as a team. You score a goal as a team, you concede a goal as a team. So there's always 11 culprits. The biggest issue is, and I'm kind of like a broken record, is football sense and the ability to sense danger. And for whatever reason, the bulk of our first 11 or the bulk of our squad don't have that ability anymore. They seem to have forgotten what the basics of football are. And what I thought was particularly interesting from Brighton today was the way they exploited our vulnerability at Old Trafford. You know, many good teams, again, I'm like a broken record with this, you don't have to have outstanding footballers to make a great 11. And this is what Brighton and Graham Potter are able to do. When you've got Danny Welbeck, who I thought led the line brilliantly, a proper old-fashioned number 9, today it makes it very, very difficult, because the runners off of him like Lallana, Trossard and Gross were absolutely brilliant. So he'd be either holding the ball up or he'd be bulldozing his way through, but the scraps were picked up by Lallana in particular, and that's what makes it dangerous. The problem you got with the likes of Dalot, constantly out of position. I mean, he literally, you know, Alex Ferguson said Pipo Inzaghi was born offside. It was a famous comment because he always played the line brilliantly. Fucking Dalot was born out of position, because he just doesn't know where to stand. He doesn't know where to be. He can't communicate. His head is never on a swivel, and it should always be on a swivel when you're playing fullback. Now, people will point at Maguire, people will point at De Gea, etc. Maguire for being static on 1 or 2 issues today. De Gea not coming off his line again, which he didn't. But really, you've got to look at Dalot. He's always out of position. He just doesn't know where to be. He was average going forwards, but he just cannot defend for his life. But above all of that, and I'm going to do a shameless plug of a tactical review that's dropping tomorrow lunchtime. My colleague Abdul will give you a fascinating insight into the issues that we've got with McFred. And when you go into a new season, and we're 3 or 4 seasons in now, aren't we, to this McFred partnership, by the way, guys, and you have to think about this. They haven't improved throughout that period, have they? They haven't got better as a duo. They haven't connected. Yeah. And this is the biggest problem. So Eriksen was pushed up too far in the first half. And when you can't transition through the middle, i.e., Martinez looked a bit out of his depth for the first 10 minutes because he had no one to show for him. Maguire recognised that, so he was bypassing McFred and trying to play in Eriksen, which means Eriksen was having to come way, way deep. We just weren't cohesive enough in our play. We didn't move the ball. I mean, sorry, Ben, I could go on forever.
Can I hit on that? Can I hit on that and take that comment further? Yeah. I saw a few things online, and John, I'll come over to you. Let's talk about the centre-back pairing today and your thoughts on Martinez's start. And Marcus, I'm saving Dalot for you. Marcus. I thought today there was a lot of criticism at Maguire and Martinez for not moving the ball quick enough. But I was sat there watching. No midfielder was showing for that ball. Not one of them. Not even Fred. And I'm sorry, people come at me with Fred. Fred was not showing for that ball. He was not positioning in the right place. Then we can talk about the fact that in pre-season, and we'll get onto this, the inverted fullbacks are meant to come inside and be in areas, occupy space to allow the centre-backs to be able to play out a little bit nicer to play through teams, right? Where were they? Where were they? And I think it was summed up by Maguire and Martinez passing the ball amongst them. They played the ball back to DeGea on the 7th minute. He had the ball, dallied on it, and then kicked it straight out of play. What are Maguire and Martinez meant to do, John? There's nothing in front of them, so they're playing slowly. What are they meant to do?
They can't do very much. I actually think, contrary to some people, I didn't think Maguire was bad today at all. I just think that no one was great today, and he wasn't. I'm not saying he was good or anything, but I do think he did really well today. I felt. I think also Martinez, he did have a little bit of a batsman, a fire start. I thought, there were times where he was out of position a couple of times and that. But I did see in the second half in particular that you can see where he's looking, why he's been signed. I thought his passing was good today. Some of the long balls he played were good. And I think you can. I sort of see you can see the making of a good partnership between the two of them personally. But the rest of the team around them, which Stu touched upon, the full backs were not helping them. Dalot was out of position, but Shaw was culpable at times as well. And when it comes to where games are won and lost, it's the midfield. McTominay and Fred were rubbish. They were absolute rubbish. And I personally think McTominay was possibly the slightly worse of the two. And I know Fred came off first. I think it could have easily been McTominay because he doesn't show for the ball. And I think the frustrating thing with McTominay, when he does get the ball, he underhits the pass a lot of the time. He hardly ever plays it in front of the player when he's passing it forwards. And it means when they, even if it's a simple 5-yard ball to pass it forward, the player has to, like someone like Bruno, Eriksen has to take a touch in order to get it out of their feet and that. I just think I was so frustrated with their performance today. And I just think that with Fred, he's the opposite to McTominay in that he always overhits the ball, too powerful and that. We lack intelligence at midfield. And what is it? Is it the 3rd or 4th season we've had that partnership now? And we know full well it's not good enough. We were saying 2-3 years ago it wasn't good enough, and yet we still haven't solved the issue. I think we might move on to this. I actually think, I was speaking to Stu backstage, I think Martinez might be better playing in the midfield, but if we are to learn anything from this season, what Ten Hag should take note from this game is that McFred partnership does not work. It just doesn't, and it has to be resolved. And I think you got to try and make a statement for the next game against Brentford and not play them as a pair.
Yeah, a lot of people agreeing with you in the live chat. Go on, AD, talk to us about McFred. What are your thoughts on McFred? What were your thoughts on their performances today, and how does Ten Hag fix that problem?
How does he fix that problem? I can't answer that question. They are. I said at the start of the window, I was like, they couldn't be our starting midfield partnership going into this season, and the fact that they're starting for us in the first game, it's just like, I don't know why. Like, the first transfer that should have been solved is that midfield is a midfielder, whether that be De Jong or, I know it's a dreaded word now, isn't it? But a midfielder to go straight in, because they don't work, and today just proved that. I mean, they got bypassed so easily, and McTominay's passing is, oh my god, it's just not good, is it? Like, his McTominay's game was epitomised to me by his yellow card. Like, just dallying on the ball, not just holding on for it for too long, and then when he does end up passing it, ends up going through a studs up on a Brighton player. Like, if we're gonna get anywhere this season, and by anywhere I'm talking 6th place, we need to break that up. Whether that be, well, no, not whether that be. It has to be getting someone in. They're both really poor today, but like people have said, the whole team was poor today. But in particular, those two, like, you win games in midfield, in particular, and as we've seen over the last 12 months, those two just aren't good enough and aren't United standard.
AD, what do you think, quickly, pal? Just staying with you on that one, just because I don't want to talk too much about them both, but naturally I think we have to because of their performances today. How did you see today's system? Was it a 3 in the middle of the park, or was it meant to be 2? Because at times you saw Fred obviously the deepest of the two, and you saw McTominay more like in a box-to-box role. Then it looked like Bruno was then doing the opposite job to McTominay, but being a little bit more further forward. Could you work out what that 3 was meant to be doing today, or were they both just so all over the place? You couldn't really get a clear picture of it.
Honestly, whenever them two play, I have no clue what's going on. They just look like they're. Just surprising, to be fair, because obviously you got Ten Hag, who obviously he's a very tactically astute manager, isn't he? And you'd expect players of quality to understand what they're saying. But no, I get what you're saying. Like, when I was watching the game, I didn't understand what. Personally, myself, I didn't understand what roles they were playing, and there's one thing not understanding or not following your manager's instructions. That's one part of it, and then the other part is the quality. And for me, they both lack both of those things. And if that's the case, then we're not going to get anywhere.
Just a quick on that one. Yeah, it's AD. It's or Addy. Sorry, it's Addy or AD. Addy, sorry, mate. It's a trust issue. Bruno doesn't trust McTominay. It's as simple as that. And when you don't trust a player in your 11 or in your starting time, you're trying to compensate for them. That's what you're seeing. And when you're seeing Bruno overcompensate for another player, or actually any player in the starting 11, it's a problem for you, because what you tend to do, or what you are doing, is taking your eye off the ball of your own game. So you're forgetting your own game, and you're thinking, Christ, I can't trust McTominay. I've got to go and show for the ball. The way that it was played today is that Eriksen was supposed to be the 10, and then you've got, I don't know, the 6 between Fred and McTominay. You can take your pick who they're supposed to be. Bruno was supposed to kind of be the false 9. It'd have been so much better if we'd had a holding player, would have allowed Eriksen that more freedom, and then allowed the front 3 to actually integrate better. Would have given Brighton so much more problems. But because we didn't have that static player that can almost sense danger, intercept and spin and transition us within a split second, that's your problem. And so you probably noticed Eriksen and Bruno getting in each other's way, as well as Bruno and McTominay. And unfortunately, it comes down to that 6, pal. I'm sorry to say.
I think, I think also on that, I think JR makes a good point here. It was a 3, but Brighton broke them up by pressing Fred and beating McTominay to the second ball. I don't even think it was because Brighton were that emphatic in the middle of the park. I just think it was a fact that our players just weren't intelligent enough to cope with such a standard Brighton press compared to last season, like, and even formation and the way they went about it. You know, Brighton were good today. I don't think they were overly incredible. I thought we were really poor, especially, or sorry, not even really poor. Let me get that right. I don't think we were really poor today. I just think we had no midfield. That was our issue today. And straight away there, you're playing with, what, 8 players? It's just ridiculous. I'll come over to you in a second, Marcus. Sate, I'll come over to you as well. One thing that I did want to just quickly say was I think a prime example of everything we've already been talking about here to do with McFred and the way we're trying to push forward is summed up in the first goal. And I think very much here when we talk about pressing lines, and JR hit on it, it was a long ball played by DeGea, which went to nobody. Brighton then got the ball, to which then McTominay got lucky with a ricochet. He got the ball at his feet. He had 2 passing options in 2 different passing lanes and chose to try and drive forward with the ball. He then lost it, and straight away there was no cover. Dalot was poor and out of position. Maguire was, don't get me wrong, slightly flat-footed, and 100% I would agree with that. But I would also say that Welbeck was running in behind Maguire the whole time anyway. So Martinez there is a cover. He needs to cover. The ball then comes over, and the ball's travelled a long way. De Gea's not come off his line. He stays static in goal. The ball's then come across the goal. Luke Shaw's nowhere to be seen. They've scored. It's a conundrum of mistakes by so many individual players, but it starts by United conceding possession in an area of the pitch where the press is prominent. And this happened so many times last season. We lose the ball in areas where the opposition have a prominent press. And that means straight away they can overload you on the break. And that is what happened for the first goal. It happened once, then we just went. We lost all sense of belief and confidence. And that's what Ten Hag said after the game. So Sata, I want to come over to you. We've spoken about McFred there, and I just sort of want to talk through both goals and sort of talk about mistakes. Are you concerned that we're seeing similar mistakes to last season again this season, or is this just a byproduct of having the same players?
I think I said it numerous times, I think, in the group chat, and I think I've tweeted it a few times. Same culprits, same errors leading to the same issues again. Especially, it's the biggest thing that I find, and I think I spoke with Stu about this before, is that they lack discipline. And they just lack the natural common sense of staying in position, tracking their man, and just doing the basics properly. And I think that is what the most frustrating thing about it all is that the goals were avoidable, especially the second goal. The second goal also came from us being in the corner position up in the final third. And they knocked it about, I think it was a back heel from Trossard. He got out of a tight angle. And from there, they whipped 3-4 passes together and they've scored from the rebound. But it's just how easy, again, that it was to break through our midfield. And actually, I think in the first half, I think they had something like 12 shots, Brighton. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think they had 12 shots. And at Old Trafford, again, we're just letting teams just come there, play their football, showing them probably too much respect and doubting ourselves. And they're just taking it amongst themselves and sort of schooling us in many periods. And especially from the attacking phase, switching from the midfield into the attacking phase, they just looked like every time they were going forward, they were going to cause us trouble. And I think that was what the worrying part of it. From the first goal, there was a lot that could have been avoided. Yes, it did start from De Gea kicking it needlessly long. Like, I did watch him a few times, and he looked very nervous on the ball. I know pre-season there's sort of a lack of pressure, if you like, but there was a couple of times where I think he passed it out, misplaced pass for sure, went out for a throw-in, and then he almost sort of looked towards the bench and made a glance to see if Ten Hag was watching him do it. So he almost like he was. I felt under pressure. Now, if he's not up for the task and he's not up to adjust to the system, then I'm sorry, you have to be replaced, because we can't have any passengers in the team that think that they can just get a free ride without adapting their style of play as well. I mean, we saw it in pre-season and we thought, oh, okay, he's changed a little bit. He's sort of coming out, commanding, coming out the box. But again, the same errors were shown today. I think the centre-backs, in terms of the first goal, yeah, they could have done a lot better. I think that may be a bit of a lack of playing time between the two. I don't think Martinez and Maguire, they've only played in training a few times. I think that's what it was. I mean, so I think that one was unfortunate. They should have switched on Martinez. He should have tracked the run of Welbeck a lot better, but there was 3-4 errors before that should have been rectified before it came to them. It's got to go through. I think Stu said it comes from a collective of 11, so it's got to come through a group of players before it comes to that sort of final phase. I think for the second goal, it was just too easy. It was just too easy. You got Eriksen trying to pull back Casado, trying to chase him, and that was never going to win. You got Dalot halfway up the pitch, and then you got Fred in the right back position, not switched on. So it was just all a bit of a calamity. Just everyone was just out position, and it just goes back to what I said. It's the same culprits with the same errors, and it's just going to continue like this for the remainder of the next few games and maybe the season if we don't replace and get the right players in. Not to say that I didn't expect it to be a roller coaster of a season. I did predict that it's going to be a lot of ups and downs. We're going to have lots of lows, few highs. It's going to take him a while. But these individuals that are causing the problem, they need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed as soon as possible. Because at the moment, we just looked lost again, and that wasn't good to see. The patterns of play that we saw in pre-season, I don't know about anyone else, but I did not see anything like it. The only time I saw it, you could say, was when we took a quick free kick with Bruno, and then we forced the ball right. Nice pass from Sancho. Again, we still messed that up. But apart from that, there wasn't anything to get you off our seat. I mean, the goal we scored, they scored for us, and that tells you everything. But in another aspect as well, I don't want to be too sort of reactionary, but in terms of, I know it's the first game of the season and it is disappointing, and it's not the start that we hoped for. There's still a lot of football to play. I mean, we still got a lot of time. I mean, I said it a lot. I said it a few times, I think, in another show, and I've been speaking a lot about it, that his system is going to take time. It's going to take time for these players to embed it in their brains, both physically and mentally, because it's a lot of demanding and a lot of thinking and a lot of just physical demands, which you can see. I don't know. I felt a lot of the players in the second half just looked tired, and I was a bit shocked. Our wingers, they didn't run at the Brighton fullbacks once, and I was thinking to myself, this is a bit worrying. This almost felt like the latter end of last year. But I think we've got to get a good run of games going. We've got Brentford. We've just got to look to the next game now. And I think that's it. They just got to put this one behind them and go win the next one. And then after that, you've got the big test against Liverpool, and then you've got to go out and put on a show there. And I think that's what's important.
We will come back to DeGea because I want to have a conversation about that, and I've seen some comments come through. I also want to come back and talk about shape. And I think that will naturally progress after I speak to Marcus about Dalot. Thank you for being patient, Marcus. Actually, you know what? I'm not just going to make this just about Dalot. Let's talk about Shaw as well. Because, again, we talk about same culprits, and we haven't really hit on Shaw. We've mentioned a bit about McTominay and Fred. We've mentioned a bit about DeGea. So now I think it's only fair we talk about Shaw, his regression again, and Dalot. What happened to the promise that we and other fellow panel members said that we saw in pre-season with our fullbacks? It wasn't just Dalot, it wasn't just Shaw. It was the way they were playing as these inverted fullbacks. Today, if we didn't know Ten Hag was our manager, you could easily have said that this was a side under Rangnick. Easy. Because of our shape. We didn't look any different. We made the Old Trafford pitch way too big. What did you make of it, Marcus? And specifically, what did you make of our fullbacks today?
Yeah, it was a terrible performance. And I think for me, one of the elements that people are missing that might not be that obvious is the fact that our wingers also didn't play that well. And I think those two positions are very related, especially in the Ten Hag system, because as a fullback, you're waiting to go on the overlap. And you know that once you go on the overlap, you have space because your winger has drawn the fullback out of position. And it works the other way around. As a winger, when you've dropped back and the fullback is the one bombing forward, you're the one in the overlap now. I feel like specifically with Dalot, him and Sancho were just not on the same wavelength today. And they can both take responsibility for the elements of that. But specifically with Dalot, defensively, we already know the story. He gets caught out of position. And even though he has the recovery pace, oftentimes he just can't use it because it's too late. And I just don't know. I just don't know with Dalot. And I know that you've been very critical of Dalot and I've defended him, but I can't defend him today. I really, really can't. And with Luke Shaw, again, he just, for whatever reason, and I'm not making excuses, by the way, I'm just providing an explanation. He, for me, just doesn't look like he's at the level of fitness required. Genuinely speaking, I think that when Luke Shaw plays well, it's when he's fit, when he's in shape, and he is absolutely able to run up and down that flank. He didn't look like that today. He looked very lethargic. I don't know if it's a confidence issue. I don't know what it is, but I think it's quite clear that Luke Shaw's days at Old Trafford are numbered if they weren't already over already. So I don't know. I really don't know what to make of the fullbacks. And by the way, I'm not on the fence about Malacia and Shaw anymore. It's 100% Malacia because I think Luke Shaw's got to go, man. I really, really do. But nothing else to say. Also, the point about them, playing as inverted fullbacks in preseason, we saw the shape. We saw the way in which when one fullback went up, the other was able to tuck in and, take the defensive responsibilities. We saw this really sophisticated idea come to fruition under Ten Hag. But that was in preseason, when teams weren't pressing, when teams weren't intense, when there weren't moments in the game that shake your confidence and test your mentality. I think today against Brighton, what was it? In the first opening minutes, they hit the side netting. Immediately, our confidence was rattled. And I feel like there was a huge drop in confidence in that United team from back to front. So I think maybe that played a huge
as well, Marcus.
Yeah. So I think today it was just a combination of all the common themes we've seen over the last 3 years coming together at the same time, And yeah, that's just my observation of it, my 2 cents.
Do you know what I want to talk about properly in detail? And we'll do that once we've had this conversation and question about De Gea is how do we stop putting square pegs in round holes? Because the problem is with a flowing system and a coach like Ten Hag, you need to have round pegs in round holes. A square peg can throw everything off. And this is where also, and look, this isn't me trying to say that Ten Hag's to blame here, right? Not at all. But what are these players doing in training that then doesn't transform onto the football pitch? Because we've seen Fred and McTominay week in, week out. We've all watched Dalot play before. We've all seen David De Gea. We've all watched Bruno and Rashford. We know where their deficiencies are and where they're at. We all had a prejudgment going into the start of the season who would and wouldn't work in a Ten Hag system. And the players who we're sounding out right now, I would put my mortgage that I don't have on. All of us would have mentioned them as players who we're concerned about working in a Ten Hag system. So what is going on? I go back to something that John Savage said on Twitter earlier on, who's obviously uncle to Charlie Savage. So obviously he's got a bit of bias about him. Are you telling me that Charlie Savage and Zidane Iqbal would do as badly as McFred in that midfield today? James Garner's just sat there. Van der Beek's just sat there. These are players who should naturally actually fit a Ten Hag system a heck of a lot better than these two players. What is going on? Like, why are we giving chance after chance? And I really want to explore that in a minute because it baffles me. What are they doing in training that is getting them on the pitch? Stu, though, I'm going to come over to you and if possible, please, could we try and sum this one up quite quickly because there's a lot we need to talk about. And I think everyone should go and watch that goalkeeper special because there's a lot of information in there that might open people's eyes. And I don't mean that to then have a negative judgment about De Gea, but to get a better understanding about the evolution of goalkeeping in the modern game. Really important. Go and check out the tactical special with John Harrison. But Jarvis says, Stu, what's your comments on De Gea? He was terrible in build-ups as usual. After the keep show last week, it's very easy to see his weakness and how it affected our play. Did you see anything more worrying about De Gea today?
Nothing more worrying and nothing that I haven't spoken about for the last 12 months, as you all know, except you, Addy. Anyone who's been on the panel with me knows my feelings on De Gea. I'm going to sum it up in one word: fear. He's scared. As a goalkeeper, you cannot be scared. There are goalkeepers in the Premier League, the Championship, League One, League Two, right down the football pyramid that will come out and claim a football, get kicked in the face, get kicked in the head, get kicked in the stomach. It doesn't matter. That's what he's there for. And unfortunately, we won't do that. De Gea won't do that. Doesn't come for crosses. Can't play it with his feet. Jarvis pretty much summed up everything that I've been speaking about for the last 12 months about De Gea. But, and I'm going to be quiet now, I'm not going to say anymore, you can't say a bad word against De Gea because he stops shots. He's a shot stopper. There is a monumental amount of things for a goalkeeper to do. And it's not all about shot stopping. It's not all about claiming crosses. It's communication with your centre halves, communications with your fullbacks. He doesn't do any of that anymore. It's time for good old David to step aside and maybe even put Tom Heaton in. Who knows? It doesn't really matter, but he's got to step aside. He's not going to work for us. And he should have been done in the summer. He should have gone in the summer. I'll just say one quick thing. People talk about, and Addy's right, by the way, when he says, we know we need a midfielder. We know we need a fullback. It doesn't matter in which order you get those. Because actually, believe it or not, if you do change your goalkeeper to a more commanding goalkeeper, it's going to help birth the team. It'll certainly help birth your centre halves. And it will, it won't negate the issue for a centre midfield, but it will help alleviate a hell of a lot if you've got a goalkeeper who's going to come and punch you in the face to get you out of the way to play with football. Apex is old school. I haven't heard anyone talk about the second ball in a long time. So Apex, you're probably my age, old school, but he's absolutely right. A commanding goalkeeper, well, honestly, the confidence it gives the centre half or anyone else to claim a second ball if he's dropped it, because he knows, that you've got somebody. DeGea doesn't have the defenders' backs, and that's the key. I'm not going to say any more because I could go on forever.
Can I also just say, sorry,
on,
Ben. Can I also just say, by the way, that there's a comment last week that had me absolutely rolling on the floor, and it said that De Gea would donate a corner. Now, it wasn't a corner, but, he basically donated a goal, even though it wasn't entirely his fault. And I saw someone in the comments saying that if it wasn't for, the build-up play, we wouldn't have left De Gea exposed. And this is the thing about football. Your defenders, your fullbacks, your midfielders are going to make mistakes. At that point, it's up to you as a goalkeeper to do everything in your power to stop the ball from getting into the back of the net. And the thing is, if you actually go back and watch that first half, there wasn't that many times where Brighton were actually inside our box. Yes, they were on the edge of our box. Yes, they put us in compromising positions, but there was only a few times that they actually got in front of the goal and then scored. That suggests that De Gea wasn't that exposed. So I think this whole thing of De Gea being exposed because our defense is bad, it's a bit of an excuse. Yes, our defense has issues, but De Gea still has to take responsibility,
I agree with you, and I actually thought Maguire and Martinez were quite good. There was not one point today that I sat there and I thought, God, we look a bit dodgy at the back. Like in terms of when Brighton were in possession or had the ball, I weren't sat there crapping myself like I was sometimes last season. But obviously we had our moments, but those moments usually came from us being bypassed too easily in the midfield, not, so to speak, giving the ball away in defence or looking shaky with the ball in defence. And it's the same with their first goal. I'll come back to it again, and I think Connor's put a comment in. We initially lost the ball in the middle of the park because De Gea lost it. Like, that's where we initially lost the ball. It then ricocheted off a Brighton player to the point where McTominay got it back off of a bit of luck. Then he lost it and it went forward. If we actually tried to play out from the back at that point and it wasn't such a rush hoof upfield from De Gea, we would never have been in that compromising situation anyway. It comes back to a few of the conversations we had last season around De Gea's shot stopping and all of his amazing saves that he made and he faced. Me and Stu always asked a question last season. How many of those saves came from De Gea giving the ball away initially? And it's the same thing happening again. He initially lost that ball today. Yes, McTominay made a mistake as well. It came through, and then it was a calamity of errors. We've got to be better with the ball. And I think someone put here, John, and I want to know your thoughts on this. Yeah. Looking at Sanchez and Brighton's goalkeeper, I think that just goes to show you don't have to have the best shot stopper in the world in net to have someone who can complement your team in net, if that makes any sense. Because that Sanchez works perfectly for Brighton, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think Sanchez. I think there were a couple of times today. Obviously, made a mistake for our goal and that. But I think that the shot, the save he made from Rashford. When it was on the hour mark or whatever. Rashford should have taken that. And he shows that he made himself big like any goalkeeper, but he made a great stop. And I think the thing with De Gea is, as Stu pointed out, when you look at the goals we can see, I wouldn't say it was the main culprit for either of the goals, but when you look at the first goal, for example, when Welbeck plays the ball across, he goes at it by putting his left leg forward. But if he had died full length, could he have stopped it going to cross? The second goal, if you look at Shaw was at most full, I think, for letting that player have a shot on his left foot, because that where the danger was. Having said that, De Gea, we use the argument out shot stopping. He's got to tip that ball around the post, for a corner. And I do think that it does show a few issues, and his distribution wasn't good. So I don't think it helps either that, aside from maybe Maguire and Martinez, who is really calling for the ball either. Like the midfielders aren't asking for the ball, they're hiding, and that's another question. I don't think De Gea's distribution is good. I do personally think eventually you have to get a new goalkeeper in eventually. I don't necessarily think Henderson is the answer, but I do think that De Gea, he's been a brilliant goalkeeper for us, don't get me wrong, and overall his shot stopping is good, but when it comes to distribution, commanding of his area, coming to collect crosses, has he ever been good at that, really? That's the question we need to ask, and I do think eventually tonight we'll probably look at a new goalkeeper now, but his performance, like the rest of the team, wasn't good today.
I wonder then, how do we fix some of these issues in the short term? Look, it is the first game of the season. I agree with Sase. Look, we can sit here and we can have a moan and we can be annoyed, we can be disappointed. I think I'm more annoyed today because of the overall picture of how that defeat happened. It was mistakes similar to last season. Avram Glazer was there. We then had Arnold and Murto there. It felt like last season. There were fights in the crowd. We're all having arguments about the same players. It's just mega frustrating. But AD, in the short term, I don't think is goalkeeping or the goalkeeper a priority in the transfer window. I don't think it is. I also think we don't really have the depth within the squad currently to really change De Gea. So what can Ten Hag do to help us out, to bring some confidence into De Gea to get us through at the very least this season?
Well, as someone who didn't really think the goalkeeping department was a big I always thought it was an issue, but I think as time goes on, for me, it's becoming more and more and more of an issue because, like that first goal, like he annoyed me because, like, I'm just like, he could, like, for me, he could definitely have like just come out and got that, and I don't know, but yeah, because I don't want to go back to De Gea, but back to your question in terms of what he can do in the short term, I agree with you. I don't think we're going to be going into the market for a goalkeeper this summer. No. Therefore, in order to improve the team, it's got to be in other areas. Left back, just put Malacia in. Malacia knows Ten Hag system clearly. Ten Hag watched him a lot of Feyenoord. They've clearly someone he fancies. So for me, you put Malacia in at left back for sure. And then in the midfield, we simply have to buy someone. For me, there's no one in the squad. Like it'd be unfair to put Garner in. For me, just because maybe he's better than McFred, but we're yet to see if he's at that level, to carry us through the midfield week in, week out. So in terms of the midfield, we simply, for me, have to buy a six. It's just simple. As much as before I was scared, having to go at McTominay and Fred, they are better eights than sixes. They're much better eights than they are sixes. So if we just bought a six, I just feel like it would alleviate a lot of our issues. But for some reason, the club just don't seem to want to buy a six. So you could either put Martinez at CDM, or maybe you'd have to play Garner because he's the only real natural six we probably have. It's a difficult situation right now. But on the goalkeeper, De Gea will need to be replaced, definitely. I don't think he's the keeper to suit Ten Hag's system at all. On the evolution of goalkeeping, shot stopping is just one part of it. And for me, it's becoming, in my opinion, people say it's the most important part of goalkeeping. And I also had that opinion. For me, that's changing. Distributing the ball, your passing range, and they've never been to Gea's strength. And like Stu said, he's so weak. He's so weak. For such a tall guy, you'd think he could claim for crosses better, but unfortunately, we'll have to, I think, stick with him this season and buy a 6. We have to buy a 6. If we don't buy a 6, then I am worried. I know it's only game 1, and I might sound like it's all doom and gloom, but if we don't buy a 6, I'm very, very worried for the season. Very worried.
No, I'm with you, man. I'm so with you, because what I saw today was I agree. We say DeGea looked scared. The whole of the midfield, the only person who wanted the ball was Eriksen, which is why he ended up completely out of position as our deepest midfielder. That's the issue. And Ten Hag wants a midfielder that wants the ball. Go on, and AD, sorry, you've just
Sorry, just quickly, did you see how much better we became when Eriksen came deep? And I swear he's more of a 10 anyway. It just proves a little bit of quality in that deeper position. We're a completely different team. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say. We were so much better when he came deep.
But also then you could also see the deficiencies defensively of no one then screening the defence, which is why there's so much importance on the fullbacks. We could play someone like Eriksen in that position. We could have a De Jong in that position, etc. But then it's really important that we've got 2 fullbacks that understand positionally where they need to be at any given time. And like Stu said, the issue we've got with today, Dalot didn't have to even be that switched on, because we didn't have that kind of midfielder in the team. We had more of a Fred who's got a more bulldog approach when it comes to defending as well. And the same with McTominay, despite always being completely out of position. But Dalot, when he needed to be and he has to have his screwed on, he doesn't. And it's the same with Shaw. Shaw's the same. So I'm not just picking on Dalot for this. Luke Shaw's exactly the same. Saturday, do you agree the only way we can solve our midfield issue is by going out and looking for a number 6 that basically wants to receive the ball and progress the ball up the pitch?
I think, the number 6 role is really, really important for especially the system that Ten Hag is trying to implement. I think, forget this season as a whole for a minute, the system that he's trying to implement and the football style that he's trying to bring to this club, the number 6 position, receiving the ball back towards the opposition goal, and someone who can drive the ball forward and dictate the play, that is key to and instrumental to the way he likes to play football. And I think it was mentioned earlier in the show about Fred receiving the ball. He received the ball once from DeGea and it caused a big problem. And I think Trossard was through on goal and then he made up for his error. And I think that from there, it just again highlighted. And I actually got a bit PTSD. I thought to myself,
Can I just say on that? And do you know what the scary part of that is? That was in the first 8 minutes of the game.
Exactly. And it was just, it felt, for me, it just felt like PTSD again. Oh my God, here we go again. It's Fred again. That's what it just felt like. It just felt like he's receiving the ball again. He's putting it. He's not looking where he's going. He thinks Dalot's in position, and he's just giving away the ball, and he got away with it, making up for his mistake. The biggest issue I have is getting a number 6 in, but I think Stu and Marcus mentioned it as well. Is that there's a lack of trust between the players, and that's what I think is one of the key things there that is the most worrying. Is that there's a lack of trust. Is that you said Bruno doesn't trust McTominay. The back 4 doesn't trust the goalkeeper, and probably the centre backs don't trust the fullbacks. And when you've got a team that's broken and it's not cohesive like that, like you said, that's where you put in sort of the square pegs in the round holes. There's a lack of trust. There is a lack of trust. That's what is just evident, and you can see it in today's play. No one knows where to move. The wingers, when they got the ball today, they don't know whether to go forward or not, just in case they have to come back and support the fullbacks, support the midfield. It's just a little bit. It's a very, very big transitional period, and I think it will eventually, hopefully, and I pray actually that it does get itself worked out over the course of this season and on to next, that we can actually be in a better position going into the first game next year. But it's a massive transitional period, and it's a big test for a lot of these players and a lot of character, which is the key thing. Is that it's all right thinking they can sort of play the game, but it's also having the mentality and the discipline to actually stay in their roles. And like you said, to mention the number 6 role is going to be so important for the future of the team going forward and just making everything click together. Almost like how is almost like when Ferguson was in charge of Scholes used to come and used to just dictate the tempo, calm the game down, knew when to switch it up, make it fast paced, slow it down. Now we need someone who's going to dictate the tempo to control the game for us in every single third. And I think that's why he's so heavily reliant on getting a player like Frankie de Jong. And the problem is with that is that if we don't get him, and I'm hearing reports that we're going to recruit internally, it's only the likes of Garner, Zidane Iqbal, Savage, Van der Beek. They're the only ones who deserve the opportunity to have a go at it, because the rest of them that we've tried there, Fred, McTominay, they're just not up to it. And it's weird that I look back at the pre-season games, and the trust that Zidane Iqbal had for Savage and he had for him was so different to what Fred has for McTominay and McTominay for Fred. And it's almost like they trust themselves on the ball. If they lost the ball, they go get it back and they try it again. These players, they look for the easy option, which they can't even perfect, and that's what's the worrying thing. But it leads back to one thing: there is just a lack of trust at the moment between the players. I think that was the first time the back four has ever played, back five, sorry, I should say, have played together. I think the pre-season game at Old Trafford, I think Heaton was in goal, and I think it was Martinez partnering Varane, and then the fullbacks were different as well. I think it was Ethan Laird and Telles. That was the back five. So it's a case of, have they had enough time together? They've only worked maybe 4 or 5 days on the training ground together, so it might take a bit of time. And I think what's worrying as well is that if we're sitting here, and I know it shouldn't be the case, but we're thinking about putting Martinez at CDM. For me, that's a big red flag already, because I think we bought him as a centre back. We didn't really go out and buy a centre defensive midfielder unless the wall's been pulled over our eyes that actually we're going to use him in centre defensive midfield and just paper over the cracks again. But that's what worries me as well, is that we should be going out for an actual centre defensive midfield role that is actually going to sit there, protect the back four, screen, and then give the ball to the playmakers.
The thing is, though, with Ten Hag's system, I don't even think he is so hell-bent on having someone to even screen that defence. I think he just wants someone who can play as a
collect the ball,
playmaker, who can play in between the lines and join things up. And that's why I'm completely with you. Just a quick question for everyone. I don't want long answers, just yes or no. Feel free to all unmute and just sort of pitch in on this. Does this mean then, just from everything we're saying at the moment, is it literally De Jong or bust this season?
Yes.
Do you think that's literally it?
Yes.
It's De Jong.
We have to go and get him in at all costs.
Why De Jong?
Yep.
Why has it got to be De Jong?
No, but this is what I'm trying to say. Is it De Jong or bust?
No,
Because
I don't think it is. No, I think there are other players out there that we could probably get cheaper. Maybe not.
But do United think that there are other players out there that they can get cheaper? This is
the
issue.
I think Ten Hag thinks it's De Jong or bust. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the issue.
I do personally think as Billy, who we negotiated for other than De Jong. So yeah, I do think it's De Jong, because I can't see us getting someone of similar quality in. So yes, I do think it's him or nothing.
And I think what you're saying there, Stu, you're completely right, by the way, in saying, well, it shouldn't just be, and why is it? But I think Connor's hit on it here, who's currently on. Go and subscribe to our women's football channel, by the way, guys. All for United WFC has hit the nail on the head here, and it's going to be the same conversations we have about strikers in a minute. How long have we been saying we need a six? There lies the problem, and yes, it does. And I mean, this summary is a little bit different in terms of that. I think we can all vividly see that Ten Hag's come in, ripped up the scout notepad, whatever scout notepad was there, and went, here are my targets and here are who I want, which is why I believe every player we're being linked to, Ten Hag wants, which is why I'm taking it a little bit more in confidence. For example, when the Arnautovic rumours came out, I don't really want him, but clearly he's a player that Ten Hag potentially wants, so I'll sort of suck it up a little bit more. However, again, here lies the issue. Why are we talking about Arnautovic? Although one thing I do want to say is, since we've been on, I believe Simon Stone has put out a report that United are going to put their foot down on Sesko, which is interesting. So, and again, we want to show the other day of Graham Bailey, Stu, and he doesn't think that Sesko is anywhere near the man that we should be going for. So it's all a little bit weird, very weird. And I saw Fabian for midfielders. I think he's close to PSG though. So
he's gone to PSG.
Yeah,
It's
really
weird. He's gone to PSG, and Sangara has just signed a deal at PSV. They were the two names that were floating.
So that's quite a long contract. Sangari, isn't it?
Yeah, so just look forward to Tom Huddleston playing away at Brentford next week.
No, Tom Huddleston, Benny McCarthy, get Rory Delap in for throwing. we're thriving, mate. Boxers, but we've gone past the point of nurturing players in. Garner's not a kid like Alanga. Garner has IQ and ability, but again, Box, I think, and by the way, this is my Palistri season guy. Like me and Box see eye to eye quite a lot. I don't think Garner's that progressive six that maybe people think he is. I think he's more of a central defensive midfielder if he plays that position, or he is someone who can very much play an 8 role, but similar to how like Lampard and Gerrard used to play it, in terms that like they'll run around quite a bit, haven't necessarily got the defensive capabilities that they would do if they were just stood and holding and keeping shielding a position, but turn up offensively more often than not in the right places at the right time. I don't think he's a player who will take a ball off of Maguire or Martinez and be able to quickly turn and progress the ball forward. He needs time on the ball, is what I'm trying to say. But who knows? We don't know until we try these players, do we? Marcus, let's just quickly talk through a couple of those young lads. AD hit on like a little bit about communication between the youngsters. It's been mentioned already by the guys about Zidane, Iqbal and Savage. I mentioned them a second ago. Would you, rather than seeing McFred again, throw in a couple of the young lads? Where are your thoughts with this, Marcus?
100%. Yes, please. Every day of the week. Honestly, it's very difficult. Ten Hag is caught between a rock and a hard place because on the one hand, this is the most unstable environment and the least most conducive environment for development for any young player in world football, let alone those two. And so if they do come in, I think that Ten Hag would be throwing them in the deep end. But I'm so unbelievably fed up of McFred that I wouldn't be opposed to it anymore. I'm usually the guy who's like, no, don't bring the youngsters in. But I've changed my mind. I've completely done a 360, and I would be happy to see Ten Hag play youngsters as opposed to them two, because at the end of the day, at least he would be stamping his authority on the team. I think everybody's been asking the question, what does Ten Hag have to do to fix this team, apart from obviously sign new players? I think the next best thing is dropping the players that have continuously cost this team. And even though you might not make top 4, you might not see an improvement in the results themselves, I think what you will see is people starting to be more on his side. So I think if he did play Iqbal, if he did play Savage, if he did play Ghana, people would actually say, you know what, fair play. Fair play. He dropped Fred, he dropped McTominay. We might not have won the game, but at least he's changing things and he's trying something new. Whereas if he kept playing Fred and McTominay and we kept losing, that's the worst possible outcome, because we all know this fan base is going to divert their attention from the owners and whatever else we should be talking about to the manager. And we all know what comes next, you know, the hashtag that'll be trending by December. So yeah, I think Ten Hag has got to do it, regardless of where they are in their stage of development, regardless of whether you think they're ready or not. He's just got to pull the trigger and do it, at least in one of the positions. He cannot start Fred, McTominay, Shaw, and all the other players, Rashford, some people would say, who are considered as problem players in this team, again against Brentford, and then do it again the next week. He just can't do it. He just cannot do it. So long, you know, to keep my answer short, even though I've kind of waffled on a bit, I think I would love to see Iqbal. I'd love to see Savage. I'd love to see Ghana. Any one of them over McFred, happily.
Mm-hmm. There's those of you guys watching right now, and a lot of you agreeing in the live chat. Look, guys, if you're signed into YouTube but aren't in the live chat, come and say hello. None of us bite, and we'll get your comments up on screen as well, as many as we can as we talk. Also, subscribe to the channel, hit a like on the video. There's over 100 watching right now. Come on, let's get 50 likes. Just smash that like straight away, because at the very least, even if you don't subscribe, or if you already are subscribed, by liking the video, you're going to help us reach more Reds, and obviously that really helps us. So please, hit that like button. John Maguire's over on Facebook says, spot on, Marcus, fully agree. They're having a chat about captaincy as well. I don't know why this always comes up. How long until we just turn around and say Maguire actually played all right today? I don't get the issue with Maguire today. He wasn't awful, and actually he played some of his better football today. He actually played some really nice football at times today. I think, but again, part of the problem is the bigger impact of having a non-responsive and effective midfield is that our defenders cannot move the ball quickly, and it makes Maguire look unfashionable. How many times have you spoken about that, Stu? How many? He just looks unfashionable.
I'm fed up of talking about it. I really am. But I tend to agree with Marcus, by the way, in his, you know, you can't play McFred anymore. We've got to do one or two things, really. We've got to go and kidnap Højbjerg off Spurs.
I was waiting for that one.
For one, because he would fit into our system perfectly well. But secondly, for me, I go out on a limb and I'd put Charlie Savage in because I think he'd be the one that gives us a close to a Verratti type of player. And what I mean by that is he's a TikTok player. It just keeps the ball moving. He'll get it and he'll move it. He'll get it and he'll move it. He keeps
So
the
he
ball.
doesn't play and do like viral dance moves.
No, I don't think so. No, well, he might
No.
do. You know, he might do. Although I did call for a ban on TikTok and on the women's channel the other day.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, call for a ban on TikTok. Yeah. I just think it's
Jesse Lingard would be very upset with you.
well, you know, he's at Forest now.
Do you know what? Great thing to move on to, Stu, by the way, and you can carry on your comment. But what did you make of our new number 14 today, Eriksen?
I liked him. I saw a lot of people on Twitter and some in our group chat were saying that he was trying too many Hollywood style balls. Actually, for me, he wasn't. What everyone was missing was the speed of thought that allowed him to do that ball. So this 20, 30, 40-yard pass, whether it got there or not, it was the actual speed of thought. So when the ball was coming into him, it's a straight whip out to Sancho or straight whip out to Rashford, and we've been missing that for a long, long time. The difference when Bruno does it, he gets under control, he takes a touch, and then he fires it in. Eriksen whips it quickly, doesn't get it under his foot. So I thought he was great today. Better in the second half when he began to dictate the play. Charlie Savage can learn an awesome amount of football playing alongside him because Eriksen can almost coach him at the same time. And that's the key element. I think Savage, he's got a really good pass on him. He's got a good vision on him, and he will tick us over beautifully, just like Verratti. And he can tackle. So at the 3, I wholeheartedly agree with Marcus on this. You cannot turn up at Brentford next week with McFred, because by the time Liverpool game's over, they're going to start turning on Ten Hag.
Do you know what, by the way, just quickly on this, wish we had Brighton's midfield. They knocked it around beautifully. Don't know if any of you guys were involved then. You might have been. A couple of summers ago, we were linked with Moises Caicedo. And we done a special show on this channel on Caicedo and when he was linked. And it was brilliant. And it got me mega hyped. Like, I was so hyped about this kid. And today he showed absolutely everything. I can't remember his name now. I can't remember the guy who came on. I'm really, really sorry. But it got it spot on. Said everything. He said he'll need a season to settle, play him a bit in the under-23s, but then let him off the hook and he'll be the next. He will come in and he will be better than Basuma after a couple of seasons. And everything I thought today from Caicedo, I loved. Yeah. Everything. I thought it was brilliant. Okay, so we said about about obviously bringing in potentially Savage and other changes. John, let me come over to you. Brentford next weekend, again, a team similar styles to Brighton in some ways, in terms of they're well drilled. And they like to press and they like to get forward. They've got threats. They're a bit more physical, I think, than Brighton as well. With that in mind, how many changes do you make going into that game and who do you potentially bring in, John?
Well, I think like Stu and Mark say, you can't play McFred, but at least one of them has to be dropped, if not both, in my opinion. I think you've got to play Malassi instead of Shaw. I personally think Shaw is on borrowed time at United, personally, in my opinion. I think last year, it was a bit unfair that you brought 3 subs on in the 90th minute and that, so you didn't really see what the impacts and all that. I do agree, when you look at that partnership, Iqbal and Savage, even though it was only pre-season, they look better as a pair than what McTominay and Fred did in pre-season, and I do think that you got to try and I do think Savage has the potential to be a good player. He keeps it basic, but like Stu said, he can tackle and that kind of thing. I'd like to see him. I think he played in the 21s, was it yesterday or Friday? I can't remember, but I think you got to try and get him in one way or another. What I would also do potentially is, as we saw really in the game, it looked like at times Eriksen was playing the false 9. But what happened was when he brought Ronaldo on Fred, that meant Eriksen dropped deeper and he was dictating the play then. And I thought that he's good enough to potentially dictate the play. So I would perhaps move him a bit deeper to dictate the play compared to how he was today. I don't think Wan-Bissaka has a chance of playing, to be honest. So I will drop Dalot, but I don't think he will. And I think hopefully Martial might be fit next week, hopefully with a bit of luck. It depends whether he's fit or not. But I do personally think you need that focal point up front. So personally, if I had my way, I'd personally go for 3 or 4 changes personally.
Can I say, John, what you said there about Wan-Bissaka and Dalot, etc. I hope this makes sense, guys. And someone, feel free to jump in straight after me here. I don't get why we can't all look at this season, and I think we sort of have as fans. But for some reason, the hierarchy or Ten Hag or even last year, Rangnick for the end of the season, etc., didn't explore this, and I don't know why. Because Klopp did when he first went into Liverpool. This is exactly what he did. Ten Hag's gone in. We've got young players there. We've got first-team players that constantly let us down, clearly aren't good enough, don't fit the system, but we've got young players who you can potentially mould into that system and you can bring a bit more out of them. They're also hungrier to achieve well, and they'll also adapt a bit. One of the young players is Led. Now, I don't think that he potentially is... I don't believe his ceiling's as high as some people make out it is, but I do think that he has a very fluid and adaptive style where he can be a very good fullback. I don't think he's going to give Reece James and Trent Alexander-Arnold a run for their money, but I think he can be a very efficient and effective fullback, especially for the next 2, 3, 4 years as United go through this Ten Hag transition phase. Why aren't we, or why isn't, or why aren't we as a club putting our arms around these players and going, I've got a 3-year plan, you're in it, you're now getting game time, go and play, learn your trade, and play on the biggest stage. And if you make mistakes, we learn from them and move on. Like, why are we settling for Dalot, who continues to let us down? Why are we settling that Wan-Bissaka's potentially got to play when he doesn't fit the system? Like, I don't understand, because for a lot of us, as long as we saw some of these young lads in the team and we saw an identity start to form, we'd be happy with that this season. Even if we have a bit of a cup run and finish, let's say, top 5, it'd be a disaster. But at least we could look at it and go, well, we couldn't get all the signings we needed in one window. Led's twice the player he was. Savage has got 25 games this season under his belt. He's going to push on. Next season, it just doesn't look like there is any plan with the youth, does there? It just feels like we're always... I don't know. Is that fair? I'm speaking off the cuff here, but I would like to see Laird given a go in this side, and I don't see why he wouldn't be or why he hasn't been.
I'll take this, Ben. I wholeheartedly agree with you about Ethan Laird. I was about to say to John, Ethan Laird, look, everyone knows that I think Wan-Bissaka's a brilliant one-on-one defender, but he's poor going forward. We all know that I think that. But I think Laird has got an opportunity, and he's got a real chance to be moulded, as you quite rightly say, into a Timber-type style player that Erik Ten Hag wanted Timber to play when he was at Ajax. Do you put your arm around a player? I've never. I know you're talking metaphorically, but I don't like that type of saying. You're a professional footballer.
Can I just say, what I mean by that is put an arm around a player in terms of give him the confidence to say,
I get that. I do.
Go express yourself. And if you make a few mistakes, I'm not just going to cut you out the team. We're going to learn from them, and I'm going to take you for. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, Liverpool took that chance on Alexander-Arnold, didn't they? If you remember, Rashford absolutely roasted him at Old Trafford a few years ago. Absolutely destroyed him. He made him look like a 10-year-old. He was that good. But he learned. You've got to be able to learn as a footballer. You know, you get punched, you get knocked down. Similar in boxing, Ben. We're both boxing fans. You get put down on your back. You don't get up. You've got to learn from that experience. So you're absolutely right. I think giving somebody like Ethan Laird a shot, he's got to learn from it. Having Maguire alongside him, if Maguire's able to talk to him and coach him through games, would be invaluable. He's got good positional sense. He's quite strong for a young lad, a young boy. He's not a weak, limp-wristed player. He's quite a strong young boy. I think he can tackle, and he's got a pass on him. So I think you're right, Ben. I don't think that's one that people should dismiss. I think that's one actually people should embrace. Because if Wan-Bissaka isn't going to get in, right, then there's no way Dalot's our future for right back. I mean, crikey, I would do a better job at right back, you know, and I'm just way too old for it, but I would do it because I know where to position myself. And that's the thing. You know, Ben, you were talking earlier about the inverted fullback system. How are we not inverted as fullbacks? The reason you invert a fullback is you cut off the supply infield. You make them go outside. So you make them take the path of the harshest resistance so they've got to cross the ball. If you know, that's what inverted fullback does. You give them the space on the outside. If you give them space to come inside and they're clever, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Mo Salah, that type of thing, they can deliver across. And with our goalkeeping situation, he's not going to come from it. So I totally agree with you about the inverted fullbacks. We don't play inside enough. Mm-hmm. So I would give Ethan Laird a go. That's just my opinion. I think that's a really good point you make.
My two cents on the entire thing of not giving young players a chance is, again, for me, if you look at the way the club has been run, and I'm talking about the structure, the managers we've hired, it's because there is no long-term plan. From top to bottom, there is no long-term plan. And you can see this. The very easy way to prove this is look at how different the play styles of the managers we've hired has been. From each manager to the next, it's a completely different play style. So the rebuild of the previous manager, it contradicts what the next manager is trying to do, and we have to start from ground zero again. And I think we're seeing the same thing with Ten Hag. He's coming into a team that cannot remotely understand what he's trying to do. And the only reason that's relevant to this conversation is to say that I don't think managers can come in and say, hey, I'm going to give this kid a chance, I'm going to give that player a chance, because there's just so much chaos in the team, and there's such a huge lack of balance that it's almost not the right type of environment to bring a young player in anyways. I think if you bring any players in, and if Ten Hag tries to do that, it won't work the same way it did with Klopp all those years ago, because at least when Klopp came in, there was a clear plan. So he knew, even if they played badly that season, there's a plan beyond the season. I don't think that exists at Manchester United. I mean...
But you have to start somewhere, right?
You do have to start somewhere.
Start that off now.
Yeah, I hope Ten Hag is the start of that. We all hope, we all hope Ten Hag is the start of that. But based on the evidence, it's hard, And I'm not trying to be cynical or negative for negative's sake. I'm just trying to explain, why I think, we haven't seen managers do this. So we will have answers this season. And I suppose in some ways that's why I'm quite excited about Ten Hag, because even though we might not win any trophies, we might not make top four, we will get answers about this team. We will see if the club has really changed, if this is indeed a genuine rebuild, because we're all happy with Ten Hag and the ethos, the culture, and the principles that he's brought forth. It's now time for him to back that up, and for the club to back that up and change the way that they behave. So I really hope that come Brentford and games in the future, we don't see the same old faces. Like, I would love nothing more than to see different names in the team sheet. And even if we don't win, it would be an indication that perhaps we are changing as a club. And on the point of Ethan Laird, look, I haven't really watched him a lot, so I don't really buy into all the hype naturally, because I just think it's, it would be silly of me to sit here and pretend like I've watched him. But I think he can't be much worse than Dalot. He can't be much worse than Dalot or Wan-Bissaka. So if he genuinely has the potential that people think he has, man, just get him in the team and let's see what's the worst that could happen. Yeah.
Sati, go on. Do you want to jump in, mate?
Yeah, I think what it is for a youngster now, and I think we've seen it over the last few years, is that Rashford, when he came into the scene, he was the next best thing. He was amazing, breakthrough season, scoring on every single debut, every single stage that he played on, and then from there, the next season, he done well again. Season after that, he done okay. Then the season after that, that's when he went poor, and then he went through a dip, and it sort of hasn't come out of that. Same little bit with Elanga. A lot of fans got restless towards the end of last season with Elanga. Had a good little breakthrough, and then again it was on his back. So I think the fear is with these youngsters is that how toxic it is at the moment, and how volatile the atmosphere around the club is. That I think it's almost a case of they've got to have the thick skin. They've got to have the thick skin to cope with everyone probably after a poor performance being on their back. They're not good enough. Get them out. That's one big thing. But the second thing is that what I liked from Laird watching him was that he had confidence about himself, which was nice. He had actually a bit of courage to think, do you know what, actually, I am going to overlap the winger. I am going to get into good positions. I am going to try. And I think that's where he does deserve a chance. And if we haven't got the funds or we're not going to be looking at right backs, for me, it's a no-brainer that we keep him and we do give him a trial. It's not, it can't be any worse than Dalot and Wan-Bissaka, what they've done. And they've had their chances under different managers countless of times, and they're not up for the task and not up for the job. So if it's within our academy internally with Ethan, then I don't see what the problem is with giving him a chance. But as fans, we have to just be patient and just support them, even if they make a mistake. Or I think even a game in the friendly, I think the goal that we conceded at Old Trafford, it was on his side after a save from Heaton, and fans are like, see, there you go, he's not ready, he's ball watching, but it wasn't his fault because it was a collective of errors before the shot come in. So I think that he does deserve an opportunity, and I liked what I saw, and he did have a really good on loan spell as well. I think it was with MK Dons, if I'm wrong.
No, it was who was it with at the
Swansea?
start?
Was it Swansea?
Swansea and Bournemouth.
Swansea, yeah.
Swansea and
I
Bournemouth.
think MK Dons was the couple of seasons before that.
Yeah, the season before that is with MK Dons.
Yeah, so he has had a really good sort of loan spell, and he has performed well. So I think he's a no-brainer to give a chance.
AD, there's a few people jumping in now, like Jarvis was saying about like the players hanging Eriksen Hag out to dry if he trusts the usual suspects, and also on top of that, I saw another comment here earlier on saying, "What do we expect?" Here you go. Of course, the same woeful team. Why did you think there'd be a different result? I've also just seen someone online making a point of the fact that when Pep took over at City, he signed 9 new players, let go of 4. We've let go of nearly 10 players now and signed 3. I mean, we all like to be optimistic at the start of the season, don't we? But is this just a byproduct of a typical Manchester United summer?
Yes.
What I've been used to, 100%. I just want to make a couple of points. One, I completely agree with what Marcus said before. Like, this just shows how United have no structure whatsoever. Like he said before, like every manager we've got has got a completely different style of play. And therefore, we buy players that fit their system. And because we are so bad at shifting players out, we end up with a squad that's just jumbled up together of different managers and different systems. And the end result is what you see today against Brighton. So, as a fan base, obviously, I'm sure us 6 and most United fans agree, we have to give Ten Hag time. We have to give him, at least 2-3 summer transfer windows, in my opinion, just to get his players in. Just so that his style of play can be, cooperated. Because, like we said before, like we have so many players from so many different managers. It's clearly showing with the proof on the pitch that it's just not working. And then I just want to mention, in terms for Brentford, before the game today, I had a look at the 11 players, and out of the 11, there were 8 that I didn't really trust or didn't like seeing. So the 3 that I was okay with were Martinez, Eriksen, because obviously they're new players and Ten Hag wanted them, and Sancho. Sancho, because I know Sancho's been poor, but I don't know. I just see something in Sancho that he's a good player, and I do think he'll come good. But that leaves 8 players that I'm concerned about. And if you go into games with that sort of feeling, then it's going to be a hard watch, isn't it? So for Brentford, my thinking is just out of those 8 players, just try and get as many of those 8 out of the team as you can. Because like we said before, if he keeps playing the same culprits week in, week out, and we keep losing, yes, I was saying we to back Ten Hag, but there'll be part of the fan base who will turn very quick and turn their attention on Ten Hag, which is what we shouldn't do. So for his sake, drop Fred, drop McTominay, drop Shaw, I wouldn't. Rashford, I'm not sure, but he missed a couple of sitters today, didn't he? Like that one where Ronaldo squared it, and he should have scored that. But we need to drop as many players as we can, and put the youngsters in, put Laird in, put Garner in. I would rather personally go to the market, obviously, but it doesn't seem like the club will do that. So the next best thing is to put the youngsters in, and they cannot be any worse than what we're seeing now. And And I'd put them in for Brentford, and they deserve a chance because the players who have been playing, they've been given plenty of chances, and they've disappointed plenty of times. And if we keep playing them, then it's going downhill. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Marcus, let me come over to you. I've just seen a tweet that you've quote retweeted from Grant. Grant said that apparently Ten Hag should get a bit of criticism for some of his decisions today. I don't know if you wanted to hit a little bit more on that.
Yeah, because the thing is with Erik Ten Hag, right? I've seen a lot of people saying we should back the manager, and I 100% agree. By the way, like I agree, I'm on the same page. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you can't hold him accountable for the things that he will do in the future and some of the things he did today. I think today it was absolutely criminal that Scott McTominay and Fred walked back out onto the pitch after that first 45 minutes. Like there is no reason why he couldn't have made changes earlier. Like that's just me personally. So I do think there is an element of, yes, we are in a rebuild. Yes, we need to trust Erik Ten Hag, but that doesn't mean blind faith. That doesn't mean religiously agreeing with every single thing he does, I mean, even, for example, with the Arnautovic links, it's okay to not want Arnautovic, right? Like, even if that's who Erik Ten Hag wants, it's a bit of a questionable signing, And I feel like we're in this weird space at the moment with the fan base where we're kind of going into this blame game of fighting amongst each other as fans when we should just, realize that, listen, we have different opinions on everything, and it is what it is, But just because you criticize the manager's decisions, it doesn't mean you're Ten Hag out or anything like that. I'm certainly not. I can't speak for everybody else.
Adam Arno mentioned, I agree that Ten Hag made some questionable decisions today. I think the biggest thing for me was substitutes. I felt we utilised our 5 subs really weirdly. But I do think that, again, I'll stick with you, Marcus, on this one. If he had have hooked McTominay and Fred off like that, could that have rocked the apple cart a bit too much? And what I mean by that is if he had done that, where does he go?
Yeah, perhaps, and that's the tricky thing with Erik Ten Hag.
If I'm Ten Hag, I'm in that dressing room, I'm going to go, look, you were shite. Go and prove that I'm wrong. And if you don't, you are coming off. And he did. He took Fred off first. And I think that's why he took Fred off first, because he probably had that conversation. Maybe he felt McTominay was putting a bit more in at the start of that second half than Fred was. And
could it be a message?
Huh?
Maybe.
Could it send out a message to the board?
Maybe.
But I'll tell you one thing, guys. You can't, as a manager, you can't give a damn whether you rock the boat or not. You have to do what you think is right for the team. I've been in many a dressing room, where players have scored a hat trick or had man of match performances, and been ditched, because it didn't fit the right, the right kind of formation for the next game. I've been in loads of dressing rooms. It's happened to me before, where I played pretty well and I've been benched. This is life. You can't, if you're a professional footballer at the very, very elite level, and you're going to cry because somebody's told you you've had a bad game or that he's benched you for whatever reason, then go and do something else, because that's life of a footballer. It's life as a sportsman. Somebody put in the comments about Pep Guardiola being ruthless. Ten Hag has got to be ruthless. And he's got to remove 2-3 of these players, as the lads have all said, for the Brentford game. And sorry lads, you've had your chance. You've now got to fight your way back into this team. You just can't. Consistency is the mother of all fuck ups. It really is. If you are consistently picked, you're never playing at your highest level. You're playing at 70%. Ben, you play football. If you've been continuously picked, are you always at your top of your game? Because come next week you're going to get picked again. I've seen it too many times. Can
I also just say, I know we're running short on time, but just to wrap up that point, I do also want to say that this is another thing with Erik Ten Hag. I understand the point of view that it would be silly for a new manager to come in, even though I personally don't agree with it. I understand why people are saying he doesn't want to come in and just, completely disrupt the dressing room, because obviously that has negative effects. But the thing is that people need to realize is the sooner he does it, the better. Because if Erik Ten Hag waits till 2 seasons in, 3 seasons in, it will be a lot easier for these players to throw him under the bus. Right now, there's almost no chance he gets sacked now, right? Like if he dropped a handful of those players and they all ran to the board, you can take out your tinfoil hats, but people have a conspiracy theory that there's a player power issue at Manchester United. If those players did try to push back against Erik ten Hag, there's no chance he's getting sacked anytime soon. So I think the sooner he does it, the better. It would be a lot easier for him to deal with these issues now than it will be much later. I think much later you're walking on thin ice because it's very easy for the players to be like, "Oh well, it's not our fault." Look at what's been going on the last 3 years. And it's the same old cycle.
Yeah, no, 100%. I just also want to Eriksen playing false nine. I agree. I thought that was a really weird decision, and I've always led by this. And I get that Ronaldo potentially wasn't fit enough to play 90 minutes, but you start with your strongest side. If Ronaldo can only play 60 minutes, he plays the first 60 minutes and doesn't play the last 30. I don't. Football's changed a lot over the last 5 years, where if you've got a 60% fit player, you're only playing for 30% of the game and not 60% of the game. And it's really, really strange to me. That's really baffling. Like you start with your strongest team, then you change it during the game, not the other way around. And I do sort of agree. But look, first game of the season, we started off this show with a bit of a caveat, and Sete put it nicely at the start. It's the first game of the season. We'll try not to go too hard, but obviously we're all disappointed. We lost the first game, and I think we lost it in horrible fashion as well. I think that's part of the reason why we're so upset. But I'm going to come to each of you with a closing statement and final thoughts now. And I suppose the final question for all of you is going to be, can we take a bit of comfort in the fact that this happened in the first game of the season? And are we more confident than we've ever been that we've got the right manager in place to, and I don't want to say turn this around because I think that's too drastic, but to get the best out of these players and to potentially push on rather than take another 10 step backwards? Stu, let me come to you first.
I'll be very brief. You can't take any comfort.
Oh, we lost him. I'll come to you instead, Marcus.
That was very brief.
Yeah.
No, so for me, yes, I am very confident in Erik ten Hag. Erik ten Hag is the only reason I've been very optimistic this summer. I've seen a lot of people reply to some of my tweets and kind of give kind of passive aggressive comments of like, why are you so optimistic? Why are you this? It's like, because I believe in the manager. I'm fully aware of the issues we have in this team. I'm fully aware that he can't.
Sorry, guys, I was messing around with my USB stuff. Sorry.
It's all right. We'll let Marcus finish and I'll come back to you.
Yeah, then I'll come back. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so as I was saying, I'm fully aware that Erik ten Hag is not capable of turning water into wine. That's not what I'm expecting from him. But what I am expecting from him is to at least stamp his authority on that team and at least try to impact some sort of change, because that's all we've got. What else are we going to do? So yeah, I'm very confident in Erik ten Hag, and I'm a big believer that he will, in fact, be the reason we start to turn things around. If not, he'll be a catalyst for it. So there you go.
Go on, Stu. Please feel free to be brief again, but just.
And I will be brief. What I was saying was, you can't be happy with a win or a defeat. You can never be happy, because if you're happy, then it means you've reached the pinnacle. So you debrief whether you win, and you discuss the areas where you could do better. And when you lose, you do exactly the same. So you can never be happy. So do we take any comfort in any result? No. You just keep going and going and going and going. And that's what I was going to say.
Sorry, confident in Ten Hag?
Yes, I think Ten Hag's got what it takes. I am completely in the consensus with everyone else that he needs to make these changes now, immediately, for the Brentford game, because Marcus is right, and all the lads are right. If he doesn't, it's going to get more difficult and more difficult and more difficult. To be a very, very top elite manager, you've got to be ruthless. And if somebody comes on your doorstep crying, give him a tissue.
Thank God you said crying. Stu, let me... Sorry, that'll go over a lot of people's heads. Someone will get that joke. John, let me come over to you.
Yeah, I do think I do trust Ten Hag to turn it around. I do think he will make changes for next week, but I think he does come across as. I do agree with Marcus quote tweeting, but I do think he did make mistakes today. It's clear he did, but But I do think it is bold enough. And if there was ever such thing as a honeymoon period, I think now is his time where he can stamp his oath and say to the squad, that wasn't good enough today at all. And if you do that again, you're out. And hopefully a couple of them, don't start for a while after today. But I do personally think that changes will be made. I think we've discussed some of the changes that need to occur, and I do think. But what I would also say is, obviously Avram was there today. The board were there watching it. It wouldn't surprise me if they were panicked by that result, and it wouldn't surprise me if you potentially see a couple of signings, 2 or 3 signings before the end of the window. I do think because it has echoes similar to Van Gaal's first game when we lost us. Swansea, we brought a load of players in. I do think it wouldn't surprise me if something similar happened. I think it might panic them potentially.
No, not Arnautovic. No, please.
No, I agree. I would want him.
Same question to you, pal.
Yeah, no, fully. I think he'll definitely be. I think Ten Hag will be fine. Like I said, it's just I'm not as disappointed as I am with today. And it's only the first game. He comes across really well in press conferences and interviews. I like the way he speaks, and he seems like the type of guy who takes no nonsense. I do feel like he'll be the type of manager to drop people when they deserve to be dropped, unlike the previous managers we've had. So I will believe that until I'm proven otherwise. But I do think he'll play players on merit, and if he does that, I do think we'll have a okay season, hopefully. So yeah, only one game, but hopefully, if my opinions on him are correct, it will get better.
Fingers crossed, mate. Sati, over to you, mate. Final say.
Yeah, no, I do. I trust in Erik Ten Hag. I think he's over time. Obviously, what echo what everyone else has said, that it won't happen overnight. He has to have the support. We have to get the backing. We have to get the signings and the players that he wants, which is important, that can build his system around. And I think like I said, just a bit of time, make the ruthless decisions, drop the players that need to be there. And I think what you just said there in terms of the report just come out from I think it was Simon Stone, that you said with United looking to improve their offer for Sesko. I think it could have been a little bit of showing what we've got, that how bad it is to then go out and actually get the players that we need. I heard there was an internal meeting held after the game, whether that is true or not. So I feel like maybe it was sort of like a spotlight to say these lot ain't good enough, and it's been shown to you on numerous occasions. And I'm telling you, these ain't good enough. Now go get me what I need, because I can make it work, but you need to support me. So I think we've got to just take the next game, go beat Brentford, and then hopefully we can kick on from there.
Yeah, I think, guys, you've all been brilliant tonight, by the way. Stu, Marcus, Eddie, Sati, and John, thank you, guys, for jumping on. It's been a long show today. We've had loads of brilliant stuff in the live chat. So, guys, make sure you like and subscribe. We do the Sunday Last Word every Sunday at 10 p.m. So make sure you join us for that. Callum will hopefully be back next week. I just want to say one thing. Temi said something on a show a few weeks ago that I thought, do you know what? That is sort of a water into wine moment, and it will be Ten Hag's water into wine moment. If he can get 10% more out of each of those players, then that could be worth 15 points to United this season. And I believe Ten Hag's good enough to do it. Now, after one game, I'm not going to sit here and say that I no longer believe that Ten Hag could do it. But what I do think is that what today has shown is how difficult that is going to be and how hard that is. And the only way that Ten Hag is going to be able to really put his authority on this side and put his foot on the gas at Manchester United is by having the players at the club that he wants. That doesn't just include players through the door. That includes players out the door as well, because you don't want negativity around the club if some players aren't playing and they've got an opinion and they're etc. A bit like Henderson last year, and we can all see now the snake in the grass, can't we, now that we've seen the interviews and stuff like that. So I really hope the board are sat there today. I really hope they've taken it in. I really hope they've listened to the crowd. I hope they've seen what's gone on in the stands, by the way, because I can't believe there are fights in the stands between Manchester United fans on the first game of the season. That's lower than the defeat. It just is. It's lower than the defeat. We've got to get behind the team. Look, Ten Hag's not going to work miracles, but he will get us playing better. But he also needs a back-in. So let's hope between now and the transfer window, he gets the back-in. Let's hope we get a reaction against Brentford, and then let's kick on from there. Look, we'll stay behind the boys. We're not going to start doing ridiculous shows. But of course, when we lose, we're going to be frustrated. We're going to be upset. There's going to be a bit of negativity. But we'll also try and create some great content as well. Stu's back with Abdul tomorrow with a tactical special looking at that midfield, why it doesn't work, how we can push forward. Make sure you catch that. It's going to drop at either 1 or 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Then tomorrow night, we've got Anything Goes, where you'll get 6 Reds like this, but they'll all bring their own topic to the table and they'll discuss that. It might be from yesterday's game. It might be about something else. It might be about a player. Join us for that. Preview Wednesday, and then loads more to come as the week goes on. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share it. We've got loads of porn channels in the live chat. That must mean we've done well today on YouTube viewership. Either that or they want a sponsorship deal. Not sure where that's going to lead. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to the channel. Everyone on here has been superb. And look, hopefully next time we chat, United would have got 3 points against Brentford. That's if I'm here this time next week. Ciao for now, lads. Take it easy. Have a good night.